Welcome to Foodstick Tech Podcast, learning series of startups winning strategy. I am Rohit Shah from Foodstick Tech VC. We invest in pre-series A stage in agri-tech and food tech innovations. In this series, we aim to learn and unlearn topics that are tough to understand have become expensive for startups and also for corporates. Our first topic, we are diving into the corporate partnership. Historically, startups have spent considerable time and resources trying to establish this partnership, often with mixed results. While many have struggled and failed, those who have succeeded often gain a significant platform and momentum for the growth. In this podcast, we will explore the intricacies and the strategies of successful corporate partnership. Today, our guest is none other than Dr. Sabrina Jones. Before we begin, let me highlight her incredible work and contribution. Dr. Jones has spearheaded Open Bosch and fostered partnership with innovative startups. With a robust background in the business model, corporate strategy, and AI research, Dr. Jones also led an e-commerce startup for Bosch Rexroth as an entrepreneur. She also holds a PhD in physics. That brings a unique blend of scientific research and business acumen of her role. So, welcome, Dr. Sabrina. Welcome, Dr. Sabrina. Great to
Hi,
have you in
Rohit.
our. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, very nice to meet you, and really happy to be here today to talk about the topic of partnerships. Just call me Sabrina. I think that's fine. We don't
Yes,
need to be
yes.
so formal in our
Okay,
startup
sure.
ecosystem, right?
Yeah. So it's just a 20 minutes episode, and we directly dive into the questions. So about learning about a corporate partnership. So, Sabrina, could you tell to our listeners about Bosch stance on the corporate partnership?
Yes, absolutely. So we have been, professionalizing our way of dealing with startups for our operative business. So on the one hand, we do venture capital, and we do this very successfully already for the past 15 years. And we have added a venture client unit 6 years ago. And this is the primary focus for that is to facilitate partnerships with external startups for the purpose of creating, mutual business impact. So we want this to be a win-win situation for both ourselves, but also for the startups, of course. And this is a very high priority for us because we realize that innovation cannot be done by us alone. And I think that's true for all corporates out there. And this is why I say, corporate startup partnerships is actually a new competitive advantage for all corporates, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's actually a very winning strategy for startups also. And wow, that's quite impressive that you have started this thing 6 years back. So could you just give one example where a startup has scaled using such partnership?
Yes, I mean, so there's hundreds of partnerships that we have carried out so far. Like I can give you examples of what it can be like. So one focus where we do really facilitate partnerships is for things that are not our core business, but that make us more productive as an organization. So anything that falls into this operative realm, we like to, definitely work with startups there. And one example is, for example, there is a startup is called Rossum. They have really good way of extracting information out of text, and we have been working with them already for many years now. We have validated this partnership in an award that we give them. So every year we give an award also to the best partnerships that we have with startups. And not only for us, because we have, we can quantify the business impact that we have from this partnership, but it is important to us that the startup also benefits. And in their case, we know that they had a really big uptick in their valuation and next funding round, also thanks to the partnership that we had with them. Another example that falls more into the perspective of true innovation. So innovation, I call the topics that that land in products that we sell to customers, or products that the startup sells. So this is, it goes into a product. It's a different animal because more strategic, more engineering probably involved, and this is also where the heart is of the company. So yeah, like an example I can share with you is there's a company that's called Atlatec, and they make really highly detailed 3D maps that can be used for autonomous driving. And we've had a partnership that lasted already quite some time. And at the end of the day, and I think this is something that can happen and is a very positive example, but we acquired the startup. So this was very pleasant for both parties. But yeah, it doesn't have to end in this way, right? It can also happen that, both partners happily partner on for years. Yeah, but in this case, it was really the best strategic move for both of us to just merge our efforts. Yeah.
So it's mainly like like a Bosch has his core competence. So you mainly partner with, you mainly do a strategic partnership or corporate partnership with the companies who are mainly doing efficiency in operations, and mainly the extra AI and all these things where you mainly do a corporate partnership. Is this like so?
Yeah, it's both things. So we focus on the operative side of things, but also on the innovation. I think the focusing on startups that can help you with your innovation pipeline, or with your the innovation you bring into your own products, that is that's the Champions League of doing partnerships, because you have so many strategic aspects that fall in there. And you also, as a corporate, you may be more hesitant, or may have more concerns about partnerships, not just with startups, of course. But it's really important to do both. You cannot just do operative things. I mean, you can, but then you leave out innovation. And only to focus on innovation is also not enough, because there are so many startups that help you with, like you mentioned, AI tools and all this. First of all, you cannot do it all alone. It doesn't make sense. And second of all, if you're not using these new tools that are coming up, you're really missing out on a lot of potential for efficiency and savings, and time savings also. Yes.
So as we discuss, I understand that. So frankly speaking, so just my personal experience, it's really hard to get meetings for the corporate partnerships. So what is the best strategy that we can do to come to your radar? Like what topics you're targeting, how we can understand that, and how we can come into your radar for the corporate partnership. So what is the best strategy and what is not?
Yeah. Okay, so as a startup, if you want to get in touch with a large corporate, and large, I have 400,000 colleagues, so that's large. Now, I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn, for example, of people who want some introduction, or who want to sell me something, or who are looking for a partnership. And I can tell you that this is not a good way, because first of all, I don't know who is the right, person to put you in contact with. I would have to spend hours to search for the right contact internally, and it's not my primary thing I do every day. So most likely you will not get anywhere from there. So in my experience, what works really well is if you have some kind of personal hook point. So if you know anybody who works at that company, just go and ask them if they can figure out who could be a good person to put you in touch with. Or another good way I find is if you go to trade shows or to conferences that are very specific in your business vertical. Don't go and buy a booth. Nobody will. I mean, you're a small company. Nobody knows you. You don't have a brand. So, but paying money for a booth is, I think, in many cases, a waste of money. But just going to these places and just go and visit the booths of the companies that you are interested in. And there are the people who are paid for standing there and talking to you and be nice to you. So so if you I think if you can, you will find some contacts there. And if you're lucky, you will also find, maybe you find that even the engineers are sometimes there, so you can get into a conversation with people. And I can tell you, I had a lot of colleagues internally come to me and say like, I met this great startup at a conference, I talked to them, this is so great what they do, can we do something with them? So in my opinion, this is actually a really good starting point if you don't have any contacts yet.
Okay. So trade show and this is a conference is a very good point. But is there any way that we perpetually or automatically comes into your radar, like any database or any place where we can publish us? So could you give example, like from internally how you set your goal and find that right startup? So how the process works generally?
Yeah. So yes, that's actually a very valid point. So when we do partnerships, the starting point in my case, from my end, is we always look for the internal problem. So I talk to my colleagues and we talk about the problem that they have with their, with their business, whatever it may be. And then we really try to pinpoint what it is that they need, what the solution could look like. And then we go and we actively search for the startups out there or for the solutions out there. So we actually go and scout. And so that means that if you are the company that has this perfect solution for us, we will find you. That is to say that you have some kind of online presence, right? You have to have a website, you have to, and ideally you have a profile in these, one of those 4, let's say, largest startup databases that are out there. So there's like PitchBook, Traction, Crunchbase, Dealroom. You know those, like the 4 or 5 big names.
Yeah.
If you have a presence there, and you can even upload like text and a company profile there. But this is really, you should regard this as your company business card in a database where all the corporates look up startups. So
Yeah.
this is definitely the place to go, that we go to when we scout for startups. And if somebody finds you when they are actively looking for a solution, that's actually the best lead you can get.
So that's a very valid point that distraction and PitchBook and all these are working as a business card. And it's a very small process for the startup also to do that. So it's a very valid point. And suppose by some way we build the corporate connection. So, but after that, the process is quite long. So how can we strategize to navigate the corporate partnership successfully? Like what are the red flags? What are the process we should follow? What are the key
Yeah.
values we should target?
So for startups, there's many things that can go wrong, right? Especially because many corporates, they don't have a structured framework for this. And even even I have a lot of colleagues who are not following the guidelines that I give them. So they just go and they find partners, and they just try to do business with them, right? So everybody is just trying to do what they think is the best idea. Now, I think what is really important, especially when you are a startup and you have scarce resources, you may not even have a sales team, you're the CEO and you're doing sales yourself. You really need to focus on, the best outcome, focus your resources on the maximum output. And so it is really critical for you to figure out if this engagement with this corporate is actually going anywhere. And there's a lot of cues that you can try to find. So what is really important is to figure out what is the commitment of your prospective corporate partner. And with commitment, I'm talking about several things. Like, first of all, you should figure out, do they actually have a budget allocated that can be spent on working with you? So a lot of times, even if there is potential budget, but they cannot allocate it for whatever reason. So those are things, and you have to ask. You just have to be, blunt and ask about these things. The engineers, a lot of times, they will tell you these things anyway. So ask for a budget. Second point is, they also need resources, like in terms of spending time to work with you and, answering phone calls and emails and so on. So there needs to be at least one person who has officially, set the time to follow up on this project with you. And in many cases, sometimes people have crazy ideas, and that's fine. But if they don't have the resources to follow up, then it's really difficult to do something. So that's number two. And number three, and I think this is really important, but sometimes it's not so easy to figure out, is there a commitment from the higher management for doing this partnership? Why am I saying this? Is, like I said, sometimes, engineers or business developers, people who just want to drive business, they have good ideas and they want to do something, and they're active and they're going to conferences and they will find startups and they will talk to you. And that's all good. And you may think, oh, that's so great. The big brand name is interested in me. But in maybe just one person who has a good idea, right? And if there's no upper management backing for this project, then it can, it may feel like you have a good lead for the first couple of weeks, but then it may go nowhere. And you really, as a startup, you really have to figure this out, like, as soon as you can, because if there's no if there's no commitment for this, then you should abandon this and focus on other leads. That's my recommendation.
Yeah. Okay, so could you tell, like, even especially for the corporate partnership, the pricing is always the issue with the companies. So could you tell that how we should do the pricing at that time? So what should be the strategy?
Yeah. And this is something I like. Pricing is also the case. The corporate doesn't know what it's worth, so nobody knows
Yeah.
what's the right price to pay. One thing that I always tell my internal colleagues at Bosch is, I really recommend that they try to figure out what's the business impact of applying the solution. So in case of operative solutions, it may be more straightforward, but also for innovation topics, you can try to make some educated guesses. You really have to find out what's the business impact for the corporate. And as a startup, you can support this process. Or if the corporate, if you feel like they're not asking themselves this question, you can ask this question. You can try to figure out, okay, what is, you can try to figure out what's the savings, how many hours will they save, what's the, saving in time to market, that they will be faster, and so on. So there's just lead with questions to try to figure out what is the business impact for your customer. And if you come to some number, and even if it's just an educated guess, then this can give you an idea of what your solution is worth. And you can decide better what the pricing of your product could be. But saying that, a POC should never be, priced very high, because you just want to show, you want to show that your solution works in to begin with. Yeah.
Yes. So very quick question, like as you mentioned also that these processes have a lot of questions has to be go to and fro. So what is the best way to fast track this whole process? Like we have to be very professional and understand because it's a big company. But what should be the very
So
how we can
what I have,
how
I don't know, you're breaking up for me a
yeah
little bit, but I heard, how can we fast track this, and how can we accelerate this? I know, so working with corporates can be quite, lengthy at times, and there's definitely ways to speed up things. So in my experience, the best way is to, you do a proof of concept. You can always find, a scope for a project where you sandbox things, where you don't use like very critical data, where you don't use any live, uh, systems. Just try to make it as simple as possible and focus on, the value you want to provide for your customer. And, in this POC, you should be able to show this value, show that it works, show that your solution works in the wider framework of the corporate. And to do this, usually, like, we time box our POCs to 4 months. So you should be able to do this in 4 months. And then when you get to this point at the end of the POC and it's a successful POC, you have a really good, decision point to say, hey, our solution works. Let's take this, as the starting point to do like a fully fledged partnership. And
nice.
this also helps
So
the
like in
corporate, yeah, to,
yeah continue sorry
go
sorry
on.
Yeah. So in brief, yeah, we should have a proper proposal, very intact points, step by step. So it can be very easy communication, less miscommunication in between the corporates and the startups. And it also shows the proper impact after the end of the whole process. So you can price it up properly, right? This is like a conclusion I'm doing. Am I right?
Yes, definitely.
Yes. Oh, nice. That's a very good insights. So just like a very short, as we have a very short time, whereas we are just over the time. So I will ask for the some rapid fire questions. So first, red flags, any red flags which or mistakes the startups do.
Red flags. Okay, red flags is not enough commitment in terms of, budget, resources, and decision power of leadership. So that would be my number one red flag.
Time required, approximately time required for corporate partnership.
So you should do a POC that's only like a couple of months, and then hope for a long-lasting partnership afterwards.
And who are the key stakeholders?
The key stakeholders for, yeah, I mean, a partnership is a very, very, at the end of the day, it's a people's business, right? You're always dealing with people. You need to build relationships, and, this would be, my takeaway from all this. If you want to do a successful partnership, you need to build a trusted relationship, because ideally, you're working on a mutual vision with your partner, and they need to trust you, you need to trust them, and that this is the foundation of any partnership. And then you will build, mutual win-win and business impact for both parties. But it all starts in the beginning. You really need this trust layer, and, this is for me a really critical thing. So you need to come to a trust relationship.
Just for, but it's a very wonderful talk. Just for the conclusion, could you give one advice that you like to give to our audience, which are mostly the startups and the investors, the LPs?
Yes, so, my one advice is, don't be afraid of large corporates. It's always difficult to navigate them and to know what is going on in the background. Be brave with asking all the questions that you have, and try to get all the information, map the decision, the players that are in your corporate. But yeah, just be brave and find partners who look at you at eye level, and then that's the basis. Things will follow from there.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's very great talking with you. It's a very good learning episode for all of us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rohit. Thanks for having
Thanks a
me,
lot.
and have a good day, everybody.
Yeah, have a good day. Bye.